District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter. My name is Chris Chichester. I've never committed a crime. Verification of the fact that I've never committed a crime is a prosecutor's never talked to court. Penfield Town Court, New York State Supreme Court, and I've been in jail 6 times. How am I in jail once when a prosecutor doesn't talk in court? This is your corruption. This is your fanaticism. This is your extremism. This is the Freedom of Information Law. It's dated today, October 26, 2022. I've been sending this to you for 18 months. And when I send it to you, I have the return receipt right there. The green card, I'm going to show up green cards later on in this YouTube, is going to come back to me tomorrow. It should. And this is how I track it here. Now, the reason why I show you this is to tell you I'm tracking it. And you can see that it has printing on it, where it says right up here, United States Postal Service. Oh, I need to point to this with the appropriate finger so I can communicate with you. So, United States Postal Service, Metro, 116 West Main Street, Rochester, New York. Now you can see right here clearly that there's writing. Now I also have one of these sheets where you will notice there's no writing on it. It's faded on 2 of these. This is from 18 months ago or thereabouts that I've kept in folders. And everything I'm going to read to you, I sent you 18 months ago. And these receipts are so old that the ink on them faded and they're now blank and it's not apparent what was written on them. But what was written on these United States Postal Service tracking is what's written on this that I had today. Praying for me. This is why I use language like fanatic, degenerate, and sociopath to accurately describe you two. Where for 18 months, I've been demanding information. I'm going to demand today. I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. You're going to refuse to comply with every single one of these Freedom of Information Law documents. I'm a victim, and I hate that word victim, of an illegal eviction by my psychopath father-son landlords, Giuseppe Spano and Antonino Spano, where I own nothing. And when I write the criminal complaint, it's going to include how I had to contact the New York State Department of Health Bureau of Vital Records. This is a return receipt for my birth certificate. My landlords locked the door and locked me out, and I don't know this is happening. And they contacted my ex-girlfriend, Laura Riley, to drive everything I own from my former residence, 26 Sandra from driving Penfield. I don't know this is happening, including any boxes that are in the storage locker in Webster, New York. And I didn't pick that storage locker. My ex-girlfriend did. And my sister, Barbara, paid for it. And that destroyed my relationship with her. Was my birth certificate. So my birth certificate should be arriving in the mail. This should never happen to any citizen in the United States of America where that citizen has their birth certificate confiscated because of an illegal eviction. When I use the phrase psychopaths that describe you, that's accurate. And when I use the phrase psychopaths to describe Giuseppe Spano and Antonino Spano, this is a reason why where I no longer have a birth certificate. And when I was filling out the paperwork for the birth certificate, I thought about my mother and my father, my mother in particular, because my mother would always call me by my legal birth name, which is Christopher, which I don't go by. And I was thinking about her and my father when I was filling out that application for the birth certificate, because I was told since I was a young age that you didn't need a middle name because your name is so long. There are times where I have to keep it together here on YouTube, and I hope I can. And when I was filling out the application for the birth certificate, and I was writing my name down, I was thinking about my mother and father and how I no longer have a birth certificate. That was one of those moments, because I was born at 11:58 a.m. on July 4, 1965, and I used to joke to my mother, since I loved the film High Noon with Gary Cooper, couldn't wait 2 more minutes, Mom, so I could say I was born on High Noon. So, this is my phone, my iPhone. Veterans Outreach Center provided me with this iPhone, and you, Todd Baxter, should know about the Veterans Outreach Center. I'm not going to say why. And I've been helped over and over and over by individuals with hearts of gold. can walk through that parking lot without being arrested, Todd Baxter. Why is that? Are you a different type of American than me? You can walk through that parking lot without being arrested, Sandra Doorley. Why? Are you a different kind of American than me? The answer is yes, you are a different kind of American than me. Even when you're away from the office. Why can you walk through this parking lot without being arrested, Todd K. Baxter? Why can you walk through this parking lot without being arrested, Sandra Doorley? Why can every employee of the district attorney's office, the sheriff's office, walk through this parking lot without being arrested? That's because it is disgusting, sickening, cretin, 50-year-old Neeraj Shah, who lives with his 70-year-old mother, 2033 Penfield Road, was at the end of this parking lot. He demanded I be arrested for walking through this parking lot I've walked through 4,000 times. My life is ordinary. My dentist, Dr. Gloria Nichols, was at 2033 Penfield Road, and if she was still had a practice there, I never would be sitting here at the Rochester Public Library. Why can't Shannon Meyer, your $67,000 freak, have the capacity to understand that this Neeraj Shah and his 7-year-old mother, Layla Kumar Shah, are revolting human beings? Because she's corrupt, that's why. And you, Todd Baxter, can identify with corruption. A warrant for my arrest for walking through this parking lot? My excellent friend Adam, who lives next to me with his mother and father, will walk through this parking lot, and he watched what happened to me that day when he concocted a criminal attempt second for me, as did some of my other neighbors. And I was subsequently told all he did is walk outside and tell a man in his track nobody owns the land and walk back in your residence. That's not a crime, Todd Baxter. You will have to say it's a crime, declare it's a crime. You will have to, because I'm standing there on my front lawn in handcuffs, and 6 of your fellow psychopaths at the sheriff's office are there. So, this is the Freedom of Information Law. Now, I write it and then I mail it because I can have the certified receipt. I don't think you'll be able to see this, but this says October 26, 22 on there. This is to Todd Baxter, Sandra Doorley, Alex Renzi, New York State Supreme Court, Paul C. Metzler, James C. Mellon Jr., and Penfield Town Court. You better send me a list of defendants, you bald-headed widow, Paul C. Metzler. You better send me a list of defendants, James C. Mellon Jr., and it'll have the name Jermaine Benman on it. You know his name? Do you know what I'm talking about? Given your age, I would not be surprised because I've been ridiculing you on this app called TikTok, and I attached the TikTok to it so you can click on that and you can go and see every time I've been on there. But you, James C. Mellon Jr., released this violent criminal, Jermaine Benman, who snapped my head back in the gym, and I'm charged with arrest for second sitting in the back of $79,000 Andrew Reality's police vehicle. And he's still employed in the sheriff's office. And I didn't immediately demand that he be fired because I don't have a vengeance at heart. And if you think that this is vengeance at heart, you're insane. What I'm demanding is accountability. Now I demand that Andrew Reality be fired. I'm calling Penfield Town Court to demand a list of defendants. I'm sending them what I'm going to send right now, and they already received this. And they'll receive it tomorrow. And then Andrew Reality leaves a message on that iPhone telling me I shouldn't call the court. That's the lunatic fringe. This is a public proceeding, Penfield Town Court, where I know individuals that have been in there, including one of my neighbors, including the cashier at Wegmans. And I don't know what happened to her. I only know her first name, which is a distinct first name. And if I get a list of defendants, I can ask her and contact her, hopefully, if she doesn't think it's an invasion of her life, to ask her what happened to her. This woman is so nice and friendly when you go into Wegmans. It really, I don't know her. I'm just generally thinking about her and how she treated me because I've been going in there for 8 years. That's how long I would see her. And she was in total consuming fear sitting next to me, and I don't know what happened to her. But I'll guess that she went to jail because everybody's guilty in Penfield Town Court. My name is Christopher Chichester. I've never committed a crime. This is the Freedom of Information Law. The internal disciplinary record of documentation for employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. That Sheriff Todd K. Baxter has disciplined and reprimanded, terminated from employment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. What's the disciplinary process? You skinhead stooge, criminal extremist? You don't have one, right? Do you have an equivalent of the Uniform Code of Military Justice? In the Uniform Code of Military Justice is the Article 15, which I used to process at the units I was with in the 101st Airborne Division. And I was also the clerk or recorder at the courts martial. So I've seen the disciplinary process up close when I was in the Army for 3 years, from 1985 to 1988, in the 101st. And it is fair. What's your disciplinary process? I believe you don't have one. What's the answer to that question? This way, there's no accountability for you, Todd Baxter, even though you demand accountability of your employees and everybody else in the vicinity of your skinhead. Freedom of Information Law. The internal disciplinary records of documentation of employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley, that District Attorney Sandra Doorley has disciplined, reprimanded, and terminated from employment at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. You're 5'2" 3-piece suit boy. didn't say one goddamn word, Sandra Doorley. When I was in Penfield Town Court in front of Paul C. Metzer, total silence as I'm delivered to Livingston County Jail. 1, what's his name? 2, is he still employed? And 3, what am I doing in Livingston County Jail in Geneseo when I live in Penfield in Monroe County? And I'm told by an employee in Livingston County Jail it's for my safety. I cannot be at Monroe County Jail, not because of the inmates, because I'll be attacked by Monroe County Jail employees that work at the sheriff's office. That's already happened to me at the jail. Freedom of Information Law. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Todd K. Baxter. I'm going to write this in 6-month periods beginning when you first took office in January 1, 2018. And then I'll be able to get the payroll if in fact you comply, and I believe you won't. But hypothetically, if you comply and I had every payroll in 6-month periods since you first took office at your Nuremberg rally on January 1, 2018, then I'd be able to do it on my own and see how the raise is delivered. But I will tell Comptroller Thomas P. DiNapoli in Albany to audit you and do what I'm requesting of you now. I will say to him, I'll write the language. Ask him, Sheriff Todd Baxter and District Attorney Sandra, for the payrolls in 6-month periods to see how they're delivering raises, because I believe you're delivering obscene raises of $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. There's no accountability. You do whatever you want with taxpayer dollars. This is not monopoly money for you, Todd, baby. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. On the payroll that I acquired, you had 15 of your assistant district attorneys that are paid $100,000 or more. You're paid $203,089, Sandra Doorley. Do you have, and I'll get to this foil, any of your employees that are paid more money than you with overtime? Who is the highest paid employee at District Attorney's Office without overtime? I believe that's Perry Duckles. I do not know from memory what he's paid, how close he is to your $203,089 salary. But if I acquire the payroll, I'll be able to see that. And I'll also, I hope, be able to see your new employees. Do you start someone off that has prior experience in the district attorney's office at $100,000? Because that could damage the morale, which I hope that happens in the district attorney's office. You have someone, hypothetically, they worked in Erie County or Albany County or Broome County in a district attorney's office, and then moved to Monroe County, and you hire this person who has prior experience. Do you hire someone at the district attorney's office for first-hand job as one of your $100,000 employees? Because I'm confident that'll damage the morale at the district attorney's office, which is what I'm trying to do to you right now at the district attorney's office. Public employees throughout the United States of America abuse overtime. There's different ways to do it. You could sit at your desk at that district attorney's office. You could be a desk jockey for 60 hours a week. And that difference of 20 hours between 40 hours and 60 hours, is that time that is compensated at a different wage or rate by you, Sandra Doorley? What's the answer to the question? Can your desk jockeys at the district attorney's office sit at that desk and accumulate hours and then be paid in overtime for it? I understand that a trial, especially a murder trial, is time consuming, and that this will in all likelihood take an employee beyond a standard 40-hour work week. Fine. If you have to devote time and resources to especially a murder trial, and that preparation is going to take the employee past 40 hours, that's understandable. But how do you pay that employee? And you refuse to answer. And this is why you're corrupt. I'm going to read these two again. Total cost of overtime, time and a half hour paid beyond base salaries calculated at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Total cost of overtime, time and a half hour paid beyond base salaries calculated at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Corruption requires repetition. That's why I repeat some of these. And you will still fail to understand that I'm demanding information from you in your taxpayer-supported offices. Kathleen Miller, how long have you worked at the sheriff's office? And is your daughter $12,000 Camille Miller, and does Todd Baxter pay the children of his employees? And is your husband $77,000 Andrew Miller? And is this where the Millers at the sheriff's office? I don't know. But you're paid $34,000 from the last time I looked at the salaries. So Kathleen Miller, I don't know if you're a civilian. I don't know if you're a uniformed employee. And I don't care. What I do care about is if you're being sexually harassed or you know about sexual harassment at the sheriff's office. Sexual harassment is a general term and it requires specificity. Sexual harassment is a man asking a woman out on what is a date over and over and over and she's under siege. No. Sexual harassment is forcible touching in the office. Sexual harassment is lewd, vile, vulgar language that makes it impossible to focus and concentrate. There's different ways that it really destroys the heart and soul of a human being. Now you, Kathleen Miller, perhaps have a different definition and a different way of thinking about it or even experiencing it. So what's the answer? If you, Kathleen Miller, are aware of sexual harassment, you've done nothing and said nothing. What's that say about you? I don't know if that's the case. You do. How would you describe the professional comportment of the male employees that you're around at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Kathleen Miller? Is it professional or are they animals? They are animals. You don't know you work with animals. I'm telling you, they're animals. They violently attacked me at the Penfield Public Library. The psychopath, the last name Siemens. I was violently attacked at the pharmacy office, the Wegmans at 2157 Penfield Road. I've said this over and over. My head slammed down on concrete. I had to get an MRI. You work with animals, Kathleen Miller. You don't know it. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter spending taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to apply Title VII Civil Rights Act of 1964. As I worked in Washington, D.C. for 5 years, I would hear stories about Hill staffers and really disgraceful, sickening behavior going on in the House Rayburn building where I worked and the Senate Russell building where I worked. There were 3 House buildings and 3 Senate buildings. That's the Hill. For all 535 members of Congress. And in in Albany, there's the state capitol and the legislative office building next to it. I hear the same stories. And on Capitol Hill, there's a bar called Bull Feathers. It's called Bull Feathers because President Theodore Roosevelt didn't like to say bullshit. He didn't like to curse, so he would say Bull Feathers, and that's the name of the bar. And my friend, his name was Mark Copeland, was a bartender there. And he worked for Congressman Tim Bishop of Long Island. And I'd go in there and talk to Mark and drink for free, and it would be terrific. Well, at this bar that my colleagues would go to too, that's when staffers really talk to each other on the Hill about what goes on in their offices and what they also hear. And when I would be at this Bull Feathers, especially on Saturday, because I would spend all Saturday afternoon at Bull Feathers, and I'd go there occasionally during the week, I'd hear stories about what was going on in offices, about the behavior of especially the male employees. And this is when I first became aware of that a female can be engaged in what constitutes sexual harassment in these offices by the female member of Congress, not just the female staff, but the female members that are elected. So I'm not going to go into any type of detail here about what I heard, but what I heard is behavior that is in violation of state or federal law or both, that I have just now stated again. And one of my colleagues, I worked for Congresswoman Mar Smith of Texas, and she had been in this office I worked in for 15 years at that point. And she would tell me what it was like on the Hill before I arrived there and what she experienced. She worked on the Hill for the entire decade of the 1990s. She would tell me about some of the behavior of the staff and the male members of Congress. And it was really, to use a word I use over and over for this behavior, sickening. And I have heard about this and witnessed it up close in my places of employment and heard stories from, like I said, at this bar Bull Feathers I would go to, my colleague Jennifer that I worked with, who worked on the Hill for decades, and Todd Baxter and Sandra Doorley. What are you doing about sexual harassment in your offices? Because I believe there is sexual harassment at the sheriff's office and the district attorney's office. Because I've been demanding this information for 18 plus months and it's total silence from you. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to apply with Title VII Civil Rights Act of 1964. What do you fail to understand about this, you party-switching diva from hell? And you do fail to understand. If the United States Department of Justice employees, specifically Assistant Attorney General of Civil Rights Kristen Clark, asks you, Sandra Doorley, if she calls you or writes you and says, have you settled sexual harassment lawsuits, or what's the status of sexual harassment in your office? Are you going to refuse to answer? And I believe that you would, and this is why you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter and affixed to a building at 2025 Penfield Road to monitor Christopher Chichester at 26 Sanders Farm Drive walks through the parking lot next to the building. This is why you should fire $67,000 Shannon Meyer, Todd Baxter. Is that private technology on that building, or did you buy it from me? This is the parking lot right here that I've showed over and over. And I do not know if I have an up-close photograph of this contraption that you bought from me, Todd Baxter, and I'll try to find it here so I can show it, because I've showed the photographs repeatedly, and I don't think I'm going to be able to find it, and I'm not going to dwell on this here, but I will be back here and I'll show a photograph of it again up close, and you should be able to lie about it, because you're a liar, Todd Baxter. I called a surveillance device, and you're calling Lindsay Barron, the Monroe County Office of Mental Health, to come to my residence. I finished my run one day. There she is in the Monroe County Sheriff's Office vehicle. I turn around and run away back down to Oroco Willow Pond Way, and she's chasing me down Willow Pond Way. Lunatic phrase. You buy a surveillance device. I actually accurately describe it. I've been showing the images, and you lie about it, and then you're calling this mental health leviathan, unleashing it upon me, the Monroe County Office of Mental Health, the forensic intervention team that Lindsay Barron is on. That's what she calls herself. The cost to taxpayers for photography session approved by Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter photo with 10 Monroe County Sheriff Office employees underwater in a pool. Where was that photograph taken? Do you even know what I'm talking about? Are you in that photograph, Todd Baxter? Please be in that photograph. Who's in that photograph at the Sheriff's Office? Do you have a dive team? You refuse to answer. Is that your dive team underwater in a pool? Did you expend taxpayer dollars from it? For it? What's the purpose of it? It was on your Facebook page, that photograph. I'll be back on here with the photographs. I don't have the photographs of this photograph of Ryan Fisher. I'm going to get to him and other photographs because it's time consuming to be on here. I only have so much time at this Rochester Public Library. But I'll be back here again when I do this for, I hope in 48 hours, I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'm going to hold up the pictures of Ryan Fisher. I'll hold up the pictures of the surveillance device. I'll hold up the pictures of other things too. But I'm not doing that today because it's time. Todd Baxter, how much did you pay for that surveillance device? Is it private technology at 2025 Penfield Road for a business called Consumer Insights, or did you buy it to fix it from me? Freedom of Information Law. The cost for a hotel and plane ticket for Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher attended Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia with his canine dog Lola on February 3rd, 2019. What's he doing down there? In Stars and Bars, Redneck, Georgia. This is a totally different state than New York. And I lived in Kentucky for 2 years and 4 months when I was in the 101st Airborne Division. I've seen the differences between New York and the South. And a lot of the things in the South are praiseworthy. But there were times where I thought I was in a different country. And I've never been to Georgia. But Georgia's the South, just like Kentucky. And what is he doing there? They did not even change the Stars and Bars flag until 2003. That's how alienated Georgia is. Georgia and its repulsive history of segregation. When Martin Luther King Jr. was right at the height of the Civil Rights Movement, he was going to Georgia because of what was happening in this state. Georgia was really ground zero for racism that was the driving force that led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which not only deals with racism, it deals with sexual harassment, sexism, and other things too. And the law is a joke to you, and that's why you refuse to comply with my FOIL about Freedom of Information Law. You're overweight, Todd Baxter. When I was in the 101st, the colonel, his name was Thomas Roy. He was a Vietnam veteran. He looked like Rambo. You, Todd Baxter, I saw you at that parade on East Main Street in Rochester. I said your name and you acknowledged me. And I looked at you. I already knew you were overweight. Now you are right in front of me with that 20, 25, 30 pounds overweight. Employee after employee, especially employees at jail, are overweight. Why do you not have any physical training program? Well, you just compel them to be at a designated site 3 days a week and do push-ups, sit-ups, and 2-mile runs just like it's done in the Army. Because you're corrupt, that's why. What are the physical training standards and requirements at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office for Sheriff Todd Baxter? Freedom of Information Law. Day in year, Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter rehired Michael Rather after his 20-year career with the Sheriff's Office ended. I went right to the payroll. Michael Rather, in the middle of it, $0. Do you pay him private money? What does he do with the Sheriff's Office for $0? I will contact him directly, or I'll copy you and Sandra Doorley and the United States Attorney for Western District of New York, Trinity E. Ross, Controller Thomas P. Napoli. What does this guy do? Is he the gopher? Is he the entertainment? Is he the help? a $0 employee. My job in Albany for the governor majority leader and in Washington, D.C. for Senator Olympia Snowe and Congressman Mark Smith was to deliver the payroll to the media. I knew what everybody was paid. There's nobody that's paid $0. And then on your payroll, you $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 employees relate to children and employees. Who's at your jail? You party-switching stooge. You are such a buffoon and incompetent. You don't separate the violent inmates from the non-violent inmates. I'm walking around here with the murderers and the rapists, quote, I beat the bitch, end quote. That's what I heard one man say to another man at the jail about how he committed violence upon the woman he lived with. The name and charge of every inmate at Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter, Monroe County Jail from January 2018, October 26, 2022. I'm sitting there eating right next to a murderer because this picture was in the Democrat and Chronicle. This 6'8", 280, 290-pound psychopath is sitting right next to me. Todd Baxter, separate your violent inmates from the non-violent inmates. There are at least 3 names you should send directly to me on the address that's on this Freedom of Information law, Sandra, and you refuse because you're corrupt. At least 3 names. In my last appearance before Alex Rennie, there were 2 female prosecutors behind me. So I have multiple prosecutors. What are all their names? Every time I appear in court, that's a public proceeding. Your prosecutors have to be in that court. And what are the names of these 2 females? I had not seen these before. Here are 2 females that if I was walking through Wegmans or Target or at Cam's Pizza and they were sitting right next to me, you're standing right next to me, I would have no idea who they are. Yet these 2 females, who I saw for the first time, are standing behind me in front of Alex Renzi. This is the lunatic fringe. You're just compelling me to be in front of Alex Renzi. Did these 2 females decide that I should be in front of Alex Renzi to deliver me to jail? And then on this, I was released in this appearance, where I said to him, "Am I finished and done?" This is where I said to him specifically. I said to Alex Renzi, "Am I finished and done?" And he said yes, and I don't think I am. Alex Renzi told me I was done in New York State Supreme Court. I'm done with you, Todd Baxter. I'm done with you, Sandra Doorley. I better be done. Do you hear me, you party-switching psychopaths? Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester for Paul C. Metzer, Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Total silence. This is the 5'2", 3-piece suit bully. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester for Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? These are the 2 females. Sandra Doorley, did your health and the radical decline of your health prevent you from providing me with this information? I believe the answer is yes. Freedom of Information on listed defendants in Penfield Town Court for Paul C. Metzler. You 70-year-old skinhead widow, what's the problem? I'm demanding this now over and over. 15 plus times I've sent this to you. Why do you refuse to comply? Because you're corrupt. A list of defendants in Penfield Town Court for James Humiley Jr. This will include Jermaine Benman, James Humiley Jr. I received a subpoena to go into Penfield Town Court after this violent thug snaps my head back. I sit down. Your employee came over to me, immediately ordered me to leave the courtroom. That's because there's a deal between Jessica Wagner, District Attorney's Office, you, James Humiley Jr., and the attorney for Jermaine to let him go free. I'm in jail, charged with harassment second, sitting in the backseat of a vehicle, and this violent thug, Jermaine Benman, is freed. I'm walking out of Wegmans one day, here he comes right at me in the parking lot. I said hello to him in the loudest possible way. This is a violent individual who I believe was violent prior to this. What I can't find out from anybody is if he has a prior criminal record. So, James Humiley Jr., I'm going to say something I have not said to you before. Because you released his violent criminal. Did you release his violent criminal? You know he has a prior criminal record. And what's his prior criminal record? What I can't find out, which is extremely difficult, is the prior criminal record for the individual involved. Like Layla Kumar and Nayraj Shah, this 50-year-old man who was with a 70-year-old mother going to the sheriff's office being walked through the parking lot. I do not know if either one of these 2 have a prior criminal record. I'm going to try to find that out. Do Layla Kumar Shah and Nayraj Shah have prior criminal records? Go into the sheriff's office about me walking to a park lot. You know why you don't tell Layla Kumar Shah and Nayraj Shah that they're insane and ask them, does anybody else walk through this parking lot? Because you're going to be the new favorite racist at the sheriff's office, the district attorney's office for Nayraj and Layla Kumar Shah. I'm confident that these 2 mother and son psychopaths have been calling people racist their whole lives. That's why he can say in the accusatory inch that I should be arrested, and you don't question it. List of defendants of Pembroke Town Court for James P. Money Jr. You better send that to me, James P. Money Jr. List of defendants of Pembroke Town Court for John P. Menzo Jr. He's now retired. This is the guy that releases accused child rapist Daniel Blouse III, and I'm demanding the defective documents. He cited defective documents in Democrat Chronicle to release this guy. Where are the documents for the appearance of Daniel Blouse III that are defective? James P. Money Jr., Paul C. Metzer. How is your system of chronicling information and filing documents at Pembroke Town Court? I believe it's non-existent. A list of defendants in New York State Supreme Court for Alex Renzi. My name will be on it because of your district attorneys and you refuse, assistant district attorneys, and you refuse to disclose the names. This is a foil I just started to write. I think this is the second time I wrote this. Todd Baxter. I hope that when I begin to contact the Democratic Chronicle and radio and television stations in Monroe County and the controller of New York, that this is the one that's really going to enrage them, if in fact you have to disclose the information. Freedom of Information Law, the cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County and New York State by employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Todd K. Baxter. Your employees should never leave Monroe County. And I believe that you approve travel for them outside of Monroe County and the state of New York, the conferences and other things. But primarily the conferences, because I see these conferences in Albany on what's called the concourse, which is below the Capitol. Do you need further clarification about this? I'm going to read this foil again for Sandra Doorley, and you're still going to refuse to comply. It's going to be the same foil with her name. To cost taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County and New York State by employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, Sandra Doorley. Are you, Sandra Doorley, sending your assistant district attorneys and other employees of the district attorney's office to these conferences or other events that are outside of Monroe County, outside of New York? What's the answer to that question, Sandra Doorley? Todd Baxter. I'm going to have greater specificity about this one here. This is you in a race car. Are you Kelly Yarbrough, Todd? The total cost of the trip to Watkins Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. You're sitting in a race car. Really, the 1984 of your skinhead in this race car at Watkins Glen. Todd Baxter. Did you go alone? The answer is no. Who did you bring with you? You refused to disclose. Did you bring $131,000 Corey Brown? Who went with you on this trip? Your groupies, Kool-Aid drinkers, and yes men went with you. There's no doubt about that. How many of them did you take? This is Animal House, the Sheriff's Office, when you're in Watkins Glen. So, now, what I just read to you is right here. You will receive this tomorrow. Comply with it and send me the information, and you will refuse. On the Freedom of Information Law is my email address, cchichestj04@gmail. Send the information to that email or send the information to my temporary address that should not be my temporary address. I hope for another week. And I hope to be out of Monroe County and live my life free from Psychopaths Incorporated, which is you, Todd Baxter, you, Sandra Doorley, you, Paul C. Metzer, James P. Money Jr., in Pembroke Town Court, and you, Alex Renzi, in New York State Supreme Court. So what's going to come back to me are these cards where I wrote my name on this at the post office today. And, like, for example, this is on 10/12, James P. Money Jr. You received it here, Sandra Doorley. This is not in any particular order. 10/17, R. Smith signed. District Attorney Sandra Doorley on September 30th. Todd Baxter on October 8th. Todd Baxter on September 29th. Alex Renzi on October 3rd. Sheriff Todd Baxter on October 3rd. James P. Jr. on September 27th. Paul C. Metzer on September 27th. Alex Renzi on September 27th. James P. Jr. on September 23rd. I could continue to read these for another minute. You're not a private organization unsupported by taxpayers. Every single inch of your repulsive existence is because of taxpayers. And when I make copies of the foil, I have to go to Patrick's Printing here, $12.96 for that. So, Todd, it's 3:15 now. It's time for you to have sex with a jail. Quote, I have a passion for jabs. I looked at that language from you, and It is a range of emotions from absolute and total disgust at your lack of discipline in saying I have a passion for jails, to an understanding that you embrace the suffering of the human being. For you to say I have a passion for jails is your declaration that you love suffering. There are innocent citizens in jail, Todd Baxter, and that's totally irrelevant to you. And I'm such an innocent citizen. My 50th birthday, July 4, 2015, I have 2 speeding tickets in Albany, New York, and in Washington, D.C., my places of employment. I went to court. They were both dismissed. What I now know is that a first appearance in a court where how a citizen lives a life is totally irrelevant. Does not matter. What do you think that says about me, Todd Baxter, Sandra, Doorley, Paul C. Messer, James Valley Jr., Alex Renzi, that on my 50th birthday on that July 4, 2015, I have 2 speeding tickets. I suddenly become a criminal. What I did is move to Monroe County in 2012 to be my ex-girlfriend, Laura Riley, first in Webster and then in Penfield. And I don't even know any of you exist. You introduced your repulsive existence to me. I have never committed a crime. That's why a prosecutor from the district attorney's office has never talked in court. And when I had to tell my mother and father first about criminal attempt second, I'm talking to my mother on the phone, and I'm telling her, and she's in an advanced age now, past 80, that I just went outside, told the man on his tractor, nobody owns the land next to my residence, and walked to my residence. And then I saw Shannon Meyer, the $67,000 freak, run into my backyard and fall down on her face. And my mother, when she's concerned, it's been happening since elementary school, use my full name. I rarely hear my full name because I don't buy it. And she's saying to me over and over and over, Christopher, what are you talking about? You told a man on the tractor that no one owns the land next to your residence and you're arrested? And I would say something like, yes, Mom, that's exactly what happened. And then I would say, Mom, they took me to Monroe County Jail and they handcuffed me inside the jail cell and I couldn't reach the urinal and I urinated on myself. And then my mother would say something like, Christopher, you sitting in your own urine, you urinated on yourself? And I would say, yeah. And I'm telling her everything that happened. I'm hearing my full name over and over. And this is really one of the most difficult moments of my life to have to process morally and intellectually. My mother is saying my full name over and over and over because she's worried, as any mother would be. And Todd Baxter, the broccoli tree in lawn care gets to my residence at 7 o'clock in the morning, and there's Steve Desmond. You're using a civilian named Steve Desmond upon me. He's wearing these earmuffs on his head because the tractor's so loud. And my other neighbors have talked about this. So Todd Baxter, this freak, Steve Desmond, was used by Shannon Meyer to get your 6 fellow freaks to come to my residence. He wears these earmuffs on his head. How often do you use civilians like Steve Desmond in law enforcement operations? Shannon Meyer told Steve Desmond of broccoli tree in lawn care, ride your tractor by the residence of Christopher Chichester, 26 Sanders Farm Drive in Penfield. If he comes out of the residence, we're going to arrest him. The problem with that, Todd baby, is that that's not a crime. For me to walk outside, stand on 26 Sanders Farm Drive and tell Desmond nobody owns the land and walk back in my residence, you'll have to say it's a crime. You'll have to declare that this is a crime. Just like you'll have to declare it's a crime of harassment second, where I'm sitting in the back seat of $79,000 Andrew Yalley's police vehicle. You'll have to say I'm committing harassment second in the back seat of Andrew Yalley's police vehicle. This is the 1984 of your repulsive skinhead existence, where you, Todd Baxter, and your fellow psychopaths at the sheriff's office do not understand what constitutes a criminal act. With all the training that law enforcement employees undergo before the first day on the job, and then any continuing professional development, you and your employees do not understand what constitutes a criminal act. Just like $85,000 Don Benedetto, who hid on the private property of my neighbor in Penfield with his fellow psychopath with the last name Houlihan. I leave my residence, I walk alongside my residence, Benedetto and Houlihan come running at me. Pay attention, you skinhead stooge and party switcher. When I began to run, I never stopped running. If I never stop running, I can't swing a hammer at Benedetto or Houlihan. I run alongside my residence. I get to the back porch. I grab my hammer on the back porch. I used to fix my bike. I run through the sliding glass door. Houlihan grabs my arm. The hammer goes up. I run through the sliding glass door. That's not a crime, Todd Baxter. Houlihan went back to Jonestown and concocted attempted felony assault for me, for which I was in Livingston County Jail for 6 weeks. And Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court told me there's no such crime as attempted felony assault. It's either assault or it's not assault. I don't know if that's true, and I have not been able to get an answer on my own about that. If, in fact, there is a crime called attempted felony assault, I do not know. And Houlihan perjured himself to a grand jury convened by Michelle Crowley, the district attorney's office. And you, Michelle Crowley, you copied on this. Why didn't you call me to your grand jury when Houlihan concocted attempted felony assault for me with $85,000 Don Benedetto? It's a grand jury that's targeting me. Why don't you want my testimony, Michelle Crowley? Because I'm your ham sandwich. That's why. You know exactly what I'm talking about when I use that language. Quote, you can indict a ham sandwich. The phrase is so famous. It was used by Tom Wolfe in his book, The Bonfire of the Vanities. It has an earlier use. The 1979 Democrat and Chronicle has a quote from, I believe, either the then district attorney or one of the assistant district attorneys at the district attorney's office saying you can indict a ham sandwich, which is exactly what happened to me, Michelle Crowley. Michelle Crowley, why didn't you call me before the grand jury? How many grand jurors were there for my grand jury? What was the vote on the grand jury? Was I indicted by unanimous vote? Was I indicted by a majority vote? Was I indicted by 75% vote? How does that work? I don't know, and you refuse to tell me. Michelle Crowley and Sandra Doorley and Perry Duckles. So, I'm going to be back on here in 2 days. I'm going to read every single Freedom of Information Law document I did again. You'll receive it tomorrow. And then you'll receive it again in 48 hours, and you'll refuse to comply. And this specifically, precisely, is why you, Sandra Doorley, and you, Todd Baxter, are corrupt. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man.